Hello and welcome to another episode of The Wave. I'm your host, Don Texan, coming to you from my home here in the unceded territories of the Hoopa-Chesed and the Deschutes peoples here in Port Alberni, bringing you another episode of the wonderful Alberni Valley Experience. And that's exactly what we talk about here on the show. Such wonderful beauty, such wonderful natural surroundings, and a great community to live in. And today, as my guest, I have the lovely Christine Wiebe, who is the reigning Mrs. Vancouver Island. And she's going to share with us today her wonderful Alberni Valley experience and her story. So please welcome Christina Wiebe. Hello, Christina. Thank you for being on the show today.
Hi, Dawn. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, I'm very curious. Let's get right into it. Tell me about Mrs. Vancouver Island and how you got involved with this.
Great. So I am wearing this sash and a crown because I am a pageant queen, or I like to call myself a spoony pageant queen because I'm someone with a complex chronic disease. So basically in 2019 on Canada Day, I represented Port Alberni at the Miss BC pageant. It's a province-wide pageant that's open to females of all ages. And we are there as almost like a self-development, self-empowerment program to empower women to then go out into their communities and be of service and do great works for their fellow people.
Okay, so that's what the pageant is all about. Now, how did you get involved with it? Because this basically forms part of your wonderful Alberni Valley experience. Were you already in Alberni when you got involved with a Miss Vancouver pageant?
I am originally from Vancouver. I moved to Port Alberni towards the end of 2018, and it was just at the New Year, so January 2019, when I was looking at our local newspaper, and I saw a notice about the pageant in it. So I checked it out online, and I'd never considered doing a pageant before in my life, and I'm not really someone who's interested in doing beauty pageants, although now I do have, I think, a greater appreciation for what goes into them and the caliber of people that participate in them. But when I looked at the Miss BC pageant, I quickly understood that it wasn't a beauty pageant. It didn't have any size requirements, weight requirements. There was no bathing suit component to it.
Mm-hmm.
This purely was a way for women to recognize their achievements and then grow together in community to just be stronger representatives of the causes that they're passionate about. So that, yeah, and then I just on a whim decided to apply, and I got interviewed for it and was accepted as a contestant. And then I miraculously became Mrs. Vancouver Island.
Exactly. And that formed part of your, it's now part of your wonderful Alberni Valley experience.
Absolutely.
So let's get back to a little bit about how you came to Port Alberni. So you got involved with a pageant after you moved to Port Alberni. So how did the move to Port Alberni happen?
Right. In 2014, at the very beginning of it, I got very sick with these complex chronic diseases. One of them is called myalgic encephalomyelitis. So at that point, I was pretty much bedridden. And I spent from 2014 until 2018 predominantly housebound. And what I had is just this growing sense through all the treatments and appointments I had that I wasn't going to get better being in Vancouver, because part of this condition is that my central nervous system, so my brain and my spinal cord, are hypersensitized. And being in the city and in the environment I was in was very overwhelming for this kind of system. And so I wanted to look for a place that was smaller, quieter, and where we could afford to buy a home so that I could install a float tank, because that is one of my most important healing therapies and one of the most instrumental ways that I cope with dealing with these diseases. And that's when we started looking at different areas, and Port Alberni just kind of checked off so many of the things that our criteria. It was affordable, it had a hospital, it had great amenities, but it was still small enough and quiet enough. And it was a relatively doable commute for my husband, who still lives back in Vancouver. So he could come visit once in a while. And I'm really, really happy we ended up here.
Yeah, so what attracted you to Port Alberni? I mean, there were other places to consider as far as peace and quiet is concerned. There's Qualicum, there's Sparksville. I don't know how the peace and quiet is in Courtney and Comox. So, how were you specifically attracted to come to Port Alberni?
Well, honestly, affordability was one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I liked that it had the hospital. But as soon as we came here, I don't know, it almost felt like coming home, or you know, when you get that sense that you've come to the right place where you're just meant to be. So I saw the water, I saw the trees, I saw the surrounding mountains, I saw the wide roads, and it just
Mm-hmm.
felt like a fit, like the right fit.
I
Yeah.
love the way you put it when you say everybody, most of the people I interview on the show say it's like they felt they were coming home.
Mm-hmm.
So what were
Absolutely.
your first impressions of Port Alberni? I'm sure you did your research, and you know, when I heard from people that when they do their research online, the first thing that comes up is all negative stuff about Port Alberni, about crime and pollution and the worst place to live in Vancouver or Vancouver Island and blah blah blah.
No, like
So
I think like the worst place to live in Canada, because it was my husband who suggested I look at Port Alberni. And so exactly that. I Googled it, and the first thing that came up was the headline, the worst place to live.
really, I wasn't even
Yeah,
aware of that.
you should Google it. That is the first thing that came up for me. So I was concerned. I was like, where are you sending me? It says that crime is high, there is pollution to do with the mills, but that was not my first impression when I arrived here. It looked clean. It like I loved the person we were working with from our real estate company. Our realtor
Hmm.
was phenomenal and so welcoming. And it just, I think like the first word that came to mind was peaceful. It was just very
Oh
peaceful.
yes.
Yeah.
My word is serene. I just love how you're right. It's so peaceful here. I mean, there's no sirens blaring every day and like three, four times a day. There's no, loud sirens. It's braving there or whatever. So part of your experience is therefore the community, your involvement with the community, your involvement with the pageant, your involvement in the beautiful surrounding of Port Alberni. Have you been on some hiking trails that we have here around town?
A little bit, very recently. When I first moved here, I was still very sick, so I wasn't leaving the house at all. I was still
Mm-hmm.
housebound at that time. Um, I have made it to the hole in the wall.
Oh, great. Good for you.
But like talking about this, it means so much to me because it for me it means that moving to Port Alberni is working. Like it's healing me enough so that I'm able to go out and enjoy the surrounding nature, because this was impossible for me before. Like I struggled to walk from my bed to the bathroom, let alone trying to walk outside the house. So it has been phenomenal getting to go out into some of the trails here. But
That's so nice to hear. I mean, you came here for healing and you came here for peace of mind and I love the word you use, phenomenal.
when I first moved here, I was using a wheelchair and I was using a walker. And very recently this year, I've been able to go out into some of the trails without an assistive device. So it's phenomenal and miraculous. Those are my two words for experience here.
Lovely words. And who would have thought the worst place to live in Canada has phenomenal and spectacular effects for Christina. And that all forms part of her wonderful Alberni Valley experience. Now, because of your experience in dealing with this health condition of yours, uh, what do you call it? What specifically? Can you tell us a little bit about what you're dealing with?
Sure. It falls under an umbrella term called central sensitivity syndromes. And that's to do with the fact that the central nervous system is hypersensitized. And then some of my specific conditions within it are myalgic encephalomyelitis, fibromyalgia, allodynia.
Oh,
And so all these conditions make functioning very difficult. So for me, it's led to, like I said, being bedridden, very debilitating fatigue, extreme amounts of pain, like sometimes excruciating pain. And what's wrong, I guess, with my central nervous system is that it interprets touch as pain. So
oh.
everywhere that I touch something, including where I'm making contact with this chair, where my legs are making contact with one another, that pressure and that touch gets computed as pain, which is very draining. So all these like warning signals are being triggered all the time, and I'm constantly in essentially fight or flight mode. And when you have these conditions, it leads to just having more problems in the body because things are out of whack. So I have issues with temperature regulation, extreme itchiness. There's just digestive issues. So it's just a whole host of problems that imprisons you, really.
Wow, that's quite a lot to deal with. And on top of all that, I mean, your physical condition, on top of all that, this is classified as a unseen condition.
Yeah.
And yeah,
What
could you
we
tell
call
me a little bit more about that?
So what we call an invisible disease or an invisible illness. And for me, that's actually why I did the pageant, because I became very, very invested and passionate about increasing people's awareness about the fact that people in our community, more than we know, are sick with complex, chronic, and invisible diseases. And so when I say invisible, what I mean is that you can't tell that I'm
Hmm.
looking at me. Like right now, you can't feel or see all the symptoms that I'm currently experiencing while talking. So it's a blessing and a curse. If I want to appear fine and have no one know that I'm suffering, I can pull it off, especially with a face of makeup. But it leads to many challenges for people because you then have stigmas that arise. You have people who don't believe you. You have medical professionals who don't believe that you're sick, and so you're not getting the right diagnosis, the right medical attention. You have insurance companies that deny that you have a very real illness or disability. So it's a problem. And then just at a community level, when you can't see someone sick, it's very hard to understand what they're going through
Hmm.
and relate. And so that leads to miscommunication, misunderstanding, and less kindness than what people who are sick with these illnesses need. So I'm really glad you asked about that because it's so important for people to be aware that there's so much more going on beneath the surface, and we need to extend our fellow neighbors more understanding and compassion.
So in terms of that, so in a way, you have become an advocate for this disease or this illness,
Yes.
right? And how was the response here in Port Alberni? How has the response been for you?
In Port Alberni. Well, to be honest, I haven't been as visible in the community here as I would have liked. Like, I do, even though I'm a pageant queen, I'm a different kind of pageant queen. One, I wasn't anticipating on winning a title, and two, I was too sick to go out in the traditional sense where I could volunteer a lot of my time and I could be present at events or speak. Because, for example, even after talking to you here, like right now, my body's shaking and it's very draining for me to do this. When I first got the title and I was doing some charity events in our community, I would crash very hard
Oh,
and
wow.
end up, once again, spending most of my time in bed, unable to feed myself or really look after myself for weeks, up to like a few months at a time. So it's really hindered my ability to be as active as I would like. What I do within my current limits, while really trying to focus most of my energy on healing and trying to improve my function, is using social media as my platform
Okay.
to write about what I deal with, try and raise awareness for what other people are dealing with. And then the other component is not specifically within Port Alberni, but I volunteer with the Myalgic Encephalomyelitis and Fibromyalgia Society of BC, because that's to benefit like everyone in BC who has those two particular conditions. But
Okay.
but as I get better, Dawn, then I would love to be so much more active in this community. Yeah.
Well, I'm happy that you're able to do this for the show because this, in a way, this also gives you a little bit of a platform,
Yeah, thank you.
right? And so that was what I was curious about as the reigning queen. So your reign is until when?
It's until next year, July 2021.
Okay, so July 2021. So as the reigning Mrs. Vancouver Island, are you involved in other activities outside of Port Alberni, like doing appearances and speaking engagements? on, you know, some place in the island? Or now of course because of COVID you
Yeah,
can't, but
I had a couple of things lined up for this year, but then when the pandemic hit, it all got tossed up into the air. So I don't know what's going to happen with them. I think like for me, I have some ideas percolating of things I would like to do once, I guess, things are more certain, because that's another thing with COVID. I'm someone who can't afford to get sick.
definitely.
So like I'm a high risk individual in that sense, where my immune system is not great because it's already contending with so much. And I mean, I've spent 24/7 of my life for 6 or 7 years sick. The last thing I want is COVID on top of it.
Hmm.
And what people are dealing with COVID-19 is very similar to myalgic encephalomyelitis. So I don't know what that would do to somewhat like experience both those things at the same time. I just know it would probably set me back quite a bit. So I haven't really gone out at all to get involved because I don't want to take on that risk right now.
Oh, that's definitely for sure, right? So, but as the reigning queen who lives here, so we're so fortunate you're here, and you're fortunate that you're here as well. So, as the reigning queen or Miss Vancouver Island who lives in the wonderful Alberni Valley, having a wonderful Alberni Valley experience, what would you say to the naysayers about, you know, people who have bad thoughts or negative thoughts about Port Alberni? What would you say to them? Not that we want them to live here anyway, but it's like sort of like a, you know, a throwback at them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you are in control of your thoughts, right? So if you are the person who can only see the negative things about this place, I think that you're the kind of person who's only going to see the negative things about any place that you're living in.
That's true.
Um, and it's a shame because there's so much here that is beautiful. There's so much here that we can be grateful for and feel blessed by. So it's really about shifting your perspective and choosing to see the good things while still acknowledging that there are things that
Hmm.
are bad and need improving that we can take action on.
Yeah, that begs my next question. If you were to have a voice or have a platform to suggest, what would you suggest that Port Alberni could improve on?
That's a very good question. Well, we all know we have issues with like the drug issues and whatnot, but
Hmm.
um, a lot of people have opinions about that. So I think I'll talk about something a bit different. I think it'd be nice. One thing I noticed is that there are a lot of wide open parking lots
Uh-huh.
all around town, right? That are unused. They're starting to get overgrown. And it would be nice to see community gardens be initiated.
Oh, yeah, that's a great idea.
Um, One, I really believe in the healing and therapeutic benefits of gardening. Two, it would help get our youth invested in learning how we feed ourselves and taking care of something. You really learn how to nurture when you're looking after plants. And I feel like when you learn those lessons, it extends to then being a person who learns to nurture and take care of other people. That could have rippling positive effects in the community. And it could also be like a form of therapy for at risk or struggling groups in the community, such as those dealing with drug issues, those dealing with mental health issues, those dealing with chronic illnesses. So kind of like another modality for bringing the community together and healing.
Hmm.
Maybe that extra food that's generated can then go to helping to feed our homeless or impoverished, and just keep kind of growing that idea.
That's a wonderful idea. Yeah, I love gardening. You should
Yeah,
see my garden one of these days. But I have planted a vegetable garden at the back and all flowers at the front. So there you
I would love to see that.
go. Anyways, aside from your winning, so you won Miss Vancouver Island the title while you were living in Port Alberni. And when was it again you moved to Port Alberni? 2000 some
Towards the end of 2018.
2018. So
And
you've been here more or less 2 years,
yeah.
2 years and counting. Right now, in that 2 years, what would you recall as your top three wonderful Alberni Valley experiences? So number one would, I guess, be winning the title.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay.
That's just a real experience. And also just that was my introduction to starting to meet people in the community, because I had some of the local businesses help
Mm-hmm.
sponsor my participation in the pageant. So that was really lovely. I would say my second one is actually I attended a weekend event or course called the Art of Courageous Hosting.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was held at the local. It was held at the high school, and Kelly Foxcroft was one of the main organizers of Raven
Mm-hmm.
Hosting, and so it was an incredible and powerful weekend where you had all these people in our community who aspire to be change makers or who are already doing that kind of work
Mm-hmm.
here, learning how to have difficult conversations um, about colonialism, racism, just everything like that, so that we can learn how to invite people into these difficult conversations with the hope of then affecting positive change.
Wow, that sounds wonderful. So when
Uh,
was this?
that was in October.
I see.
Yeah, so
Last year?
last year.
Mm.
And if it was advertised on Facebook. I just happened to see it. Actually, I think it was Kama Jones. I see her on Facebook a lot. So she used to live here from Port Alberni, is now on the mainland. She's like a well-known blogger,
Mm-hmm.
um, as well as a teacher. And so I think she mentioned this course, and I applied to be a part of it. And I'm really glad I did, because it also showed me how many wonderful, caring people there are in this community who are so invested in trying to make Port Alberni a better place for everyone. Yeah.
And it is. It's becoming better and better and more accepting. I have never felt so accepted and so, you know, empowered actually to affect change because Portal Bernie is open, Portal Bernie is accepting.
Yeah. That's really
And
here.
as you have said, phenomenal. I will always stick to that word now that you've planted it in my mind. Phenomenal and spectacular. The
Yeah.
wonderful Alberni Valley experience. We're almost out of time, so I have to do the rapid fire question
Sure.
portion of the interview. So, number one question is in Port Alberni, living in Port Alberni makes me feel like, complete that sentence.
Living in Port Alberni makes me feel like I can breathe and like I'm in the right place to heal.
Wow, that's so powerful and so beautiful. Okay, question number two. The people in Port Alberni are.
They are welcoming, grounded, and very friendly
Okay.
when you find the good ones.
Yes. And the thing is, in my case, or I guess in your case as well, I mean, you find the good ones, and there are bad ones. There are bad ones everywhere anyway, but
Of
the
course,
bad ones are fewer,
but
and the good
I,
ones are more,
I
right?
agree with that. Yeah, in the majority, I think we have a penchant for locking into what's negative, and that's why we're used to that, right? That's what the
Hmm.
media use. That's what gets propagated. But you're right. There are more people that are good, and no matter where you go, you're always going to find a variety and a mix of people.
Yeah, that's one thing I miss with this pandemic thing. I mean, I love the smiles of the people I meet on the street when I go to the grocery or the post office or just anywhere I go. Everybody smiles and they smile back at you. They say hi and they say hello, even if you don't know them. But it's so wonderful. But now with all this mask thing, don't even know if they're smiling or not.
True. We have to learn to smile with our eyes.
Yeah, they have to smile with their eyes, and not many people can do that. Okay, my third question is, in a word or a phrase, I would describe Port Alberni as.
I want to take your word and say serene.
Okay, sure, why not? It is. It
It
is
is.
exactly that.
Yeah, it
And I'll
absolutely
put in
is.
your words, spectacular and amazing or phenomenal.
Phenomenal.
All right, number four. My wish for Port Alberni is.
Mm. My wish for Port Alberni is for it to continue to grow into a compassionate and conscious community that's
Mm.
always looking out for one another.
That's one thing I felt here in Port Alberni. The community is so tight knit,
Hmm.
and it's just so easy to bring them together for a beautiful cause at any time, at any given moment. Okay, question number 5. When people ask me, what is it like to live in Port Alberni? I say, well, I guess we already answered that. Phenomenal
Oh, spectacular, marvelous.
and healing and feels like home.
It feels like home, and you just are so immersed in nature. It's the best
Oh,
feeling.
I love that word, immersed in nature. I
Mhm.
use the word enveloped, but I
Mhm.
like the word immersed better. All right, number 3. The top 3 places I would take my visitors to show off some of the sites in Port Alberni would be, well, you've
Mm.
done the hole in the wall now.
I've done hole in the wall, yeah. I mean, Harbor Key is a given.
Yes, of course.
Just going out onto Centennial Pier and taking in
Hmm.
that whole view, so for sure there. I would have to, and the donut shop. That's also
Of course.
get a donut, look at the view. Um,
Have you been to the Sugar Shack down by the quay?
I have,
Yeah.
I mean, I think anywhere sugary in town, I have hit it.
So sugar's not a bad thing for you.
Oh no, it's a terrible thing for
It
me.
is. Oh my goodness.
I have a very big sweet tooth, so I make allowances for it at times.
Okay.
Yeah.
You
And
should check
then, sorry, I should check out what?
the Sugar Shack because I
Yeah.
love the I know the owner, the Carmen. She's one of my first friends in Port Alberni was Carmen. I used her as my reference when I was applying for a job.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah, you know.
I love their mint chocolate covered, like their mint chocolates. So I get those, and then I get my mom like their ginger chocolates. Those are
Oh,
fantastic. I love the donut shop, and I love Coombs Country Candy. It's my sugar spots in town.
okie dokie. I guess this last question would be kind of redundant, but I still have to say it as part of our cap for the whole interview. Complete this sentence, Mrs. Vancouver Island. I love living in Port Alberni because.
I love living in Port Alberni because it's become a very special place for one, feeling at home, and two, embarking on this journey to come home to myself.
That's so wonderful. Coming home to yourself, that's the best experience one could ever have.
Mhm.
Thank you, Christina, for being on the show with us. That's it for today. We will catch you next time on The Wave.